Welcome to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast with your host, Tony Guerra. The Pharmacy Leaders Podcast is a member of the Pharmacy Podcast Network, with interviews and advice on building your professional network, brand, and a purposeful second income from students, residents, and innovative professionals.
At Drake, it all starts with you, and it starts in your first semester. Together, we'll build a path toward your career vision and goals. Whether you're a student in pharmacy, occupational therapy, athletic training, or pursuing other health sciences careers, you can prepare for a career in areas as diverse as patient care, management, public health, research, and more. Drake is where an immersive curriculum combined with community service and a vast alumni network enrich and challenge you long before you walk across the stage at graduation. This is where you build the unshakable foundation that lasts a lifetime.
Hi guys, this is Kristen again today, taking over the podcast. Today I have Eddie Mueller, who's a current P3 with me. Eddie's kind of, the last 5 years, has been involved in everything. He's your go-to guy. So I'll hand it over to him just to introduce himself a little bit more.
Hello everyone, my name is Eddie Mueller, like she said. I've gone to Drake now for 5 years, 2 years of undergrad in pre-pharmacy, and then this will be the almost completed of the third year of the professional program, which is kind of crazy to think about. Rotations is only like 20 days away. But I have had the pleasure of being able to be involved at Drake in kind of a wide variety, both within pharmacy school and outside of pharmacy school, and really shape my leadership skills while I've been here so that I know that I'll be kind of successful in the future. So I'll probably talk a little bit about my involvement with the College of Pharmacy and Health Sciences Ambassadors, the Drake Pharmacy Unified Group of Students Chairperson, as well as my position that I hold in the American Pharmacists Association, and then also playing some tennis along that, and the kind of mixed in with everything else. So
today I was really going to focus on kind of like your role as DRxUGS president, like seeing over everything that happens around in the other pharmacy organizations. So maybe just give us a little day-to-day what you do in that.
Sure. So Drake Pharmacy Unified Group of Students gets the funny acronym DRUGS. So that's kind of a little play on words that was interesting when I came here to school and heard about that first. I wasn't really for sure what it was. And it does take a couple years to really figure out everything that DRUGS does for the school. And so I was actually I fell into the position almost. Wasn't necessarily searching for it, and the opportunity arose, and so I stepped up kind of to the occasion in that situation, and I found to really enjoy it. And so DRUGS, you can think of it kind of as being an umbrella organization, so it doesn't necessarily do all that much itself. We plan a kind of like fun party for the students in the College of Pharmacy and Health Sciences in the winter, known as Mistletoe Mingle, that the past 2 years has taken place down at the Science Center. So that was fun to get to organize. But otherwise, it really kind of oversees and makes sure that all the other organizations on campus, so our professional organizations, I should say, professional pharmacy groups, are running smoothly. So that would be like APHA, SNAFA, CPFI, all of those. I think there's 8 that we have underneath DRUGS, and so it's just kind of overseeing all of those and making sure that everything's running smoothly. And so that's been kind of unique this year, getting to see what each organization does, learning about each one of them, as I don't have the time to be in every single one of them and actively participate in all of them, but I kind of get to have a little bit of snippet kind of inside to everything that they're doing. So that's been really interesting. So on a day-to-day basis, I can get an email kind of from anyone almost in the school, since I would say a large percentage of our students, I want to say it's 60% or so, are involved in at least one organization. So kind of overseeing all those individuals is unique. It's fun. You get to learn a lot about all these organizations and also meet a lot of people. So
that's cool. I did not realize it was 60%. That's pretty good. So then taking all that, dealing with all the emails and also your other outside of school activities, how do you manage your time to be a successful student on top of your successful go-to guy prez?
So I would say one thing that I always thought about when people ask me kind of what the definition or your definition of professionalism is I kind of think about there's 4 pillars that you should have as an individual, and I think that everyone can have. And so it's academics, your professional involvement in whatever kind of profession you are going towards, whether or not that's pharmacy or some other healthcare field or anything else. And then also kind of your extracurriculars, so that might be more of your hobbies. And then also your social life. You have to make sure that you can kind of balance all of those. And so whether or not maybe your academics takes up 50% of that time and the other 3 fall into the other 50%, or just kind of however you organize that, just being able to successfully manage that. And so when I came here to school at Drake, I wanted to make sure that I was being successful in my academics, and to me that comes first, and kind of everything else fills in the pieces there. So I kind of use the analogy if you've ever heard of like when they have a jar, and it's like ping pong balls and then small pebbles and then rock or sand. So you have to fill all those into the jar, but if you put in the sand first and you try to put the ping pong balls and the rocks in after, it's not all going to fit. So you kind of have to think about what's most important to you, kind of putting that all together, and then being able to make sure that you can manage all that time. And so for me, I definitely respond to emails. I definitely respond to other people very fast. I try to be quick about those because I think that that's important. It represents kind of you as a person to other individuals. And so that's something that I always take the time to do. I'm also somebody who doesn't sit around very much and not do anything. I feel like I'm always doing something. And so I think that that's something else that kind of works in my favor. I'm not somebody who kind of is a student more so from like 8 to 5 and then checks out for the evening and does other stuff. I'm maybe doing something social in the morning and then doing school stuff and then doing something extracurricular and then doing school stuff and then studying. And so the day-to-day basis can kind of vary. I don't necessarily have a kind of set schedule, and I think that flexibility is something that's really been to my advantage.
Maybe this is kind of little tangent, but do you use any, just my curiosity too, any like tools to make you organized, like help you be organized?
So I get this question actually a lot because I'm one of the only people I think I know in my pharmacy class or amongst my friends. I don't use a planner.
Oh my
I've
gosh.
never used a planner since I've been at school, since I've been at college. I used one in high school, never used one here. And I've never missed an assignment, never forgot about a test, never missed a meeting. So I just kind of keep that mentally organized. And I guess I should say I use the reminders app on my phone, but I don't use it that frequently, honestly. I probably only set like maybe 2 separate reminders a week. And that's maybe if it's something unique, like a meeting with somebody like this today, that it's not something regularly on my schedule that I might forget about, that I would set a reminder for. But otherwise, I kind of just plan out my day the day before and just mentally think about everything that I need to do. And so I wouldn't recommend that. I would recommend using a planner or using Google Calendar, that type of thing. Something for me is that my friends are really important to me, and so a lot of times I feel like if I were to make a calendar or use a planner, I'm the type of person that says yes to almost any kind of thing when somebody asks me to, so I don't want to have a set schedule and as a result have to say no to somebody else. However, at the same time, that does sometimes happen if I do obviously have some sort of meeting that can't be moved. I don't skip out on those, but I kind of assess my own time and see if I can work everyone in, just because that's something that is important to me.
Yeah. So. Oh, that's funny. Learned something new today. So even earlier when Eddie came into the office to grab me for this, even Molly was like, oh, hey, it's Eddie the man, you know. So being here and having leadership roles, what is kind of like the legacy-ish that you want to leave behind and be known for? So
when I took over, there's 3, like I kind of think of, 3 pharmacy leadership positions, and then also my time with tennis. So for the 3 pharmacy positions, I went into going and wanting to have a leadership position with the intention of, after I was done with that position or after I was no longer at Drake, that I made some sort of difference. And I'm not somebody by any means who does something solely to be able to say that and put it on my resume or to say that I held that position but really didn't accomplish anything. And so specifically with drugs, or again with the Drake Pharmacy Unified group of students, the biggest thing that we're seeing is it's a generational aspect in the sense that younger students no longer are joining or participating in anything or are willing to commit. This is across the board, not just pharmacy, because they no longer think in the sense of what can I provide to that organization or what can I provide to that group. Instead, it's more so, what is that group going to provide for me? Why is it worth my time to go and spend that time with them, to do this, to commit to this activity, that type of thing. And so really kind of revamping the whole system of how I don't want to use the term recruit, but just almost advertise to students, because we don't want these students to be waiting until their P2 or P3 year to finally be getting involved when we know that they could see some benefit when they're even a first year or a sophomore. For getting involved in pharmacy organizations even before they're in pharmacy school. I mean, it's going to direct their path, kind of what they want to do professionally. They're going to meet older students. They're going to meet mentors, current pharmacists, current professors. And so we really want to kind of open that up. And so this year we made a large PowerPoint document almost asked every single president of the organization to create several slides. We shared that on Google Docs, and that was shared to all Drake students with a Drake email, so that they could access that during the DRxUGS drive, as we call it, the membership drive, when they can sign up for these organizations. And so despite the fact that pharmacy kind of across the country is seeing fewer students at the moment, we've saw a slight increase in the number of students actually joining DRxUGS. And so that was kind of a huge success for us, and we want to see that continue next year and kind of growing further, and maybe be something that can be shared with students almost before they even arrive to campus, to first years, so that they're kind of aware of that when they come in, and it's not all thrown at them that first week of school when everything else is also getting thrown at them. With the CPHS ambassadors, that organization is very new. It was the first year when I was a first year here, and there was only 3, and now we've increased that up to about 20. We just recruited our new ambassadors for this year, and so that's been very successful as well. They don't necessarily have a defined role. There is no specific on piece of paper what they exactly do, and I think that gives a lot of opportunities to the group. And so we do student panels with prospective students. We do mentoring events for current students, like registration, how to register for classes, giving tours, and then we always are looking for new ideas. And so this year, one thing that we wanted to start doing was with students who are accepted to Drake and come and visit Drake. They get a letter from an ambassador in the mail a couple weeks after they come and visit that's like, hey, hope you enjoyed your visit. My name is so-and-so. Here's what I really like about Drake, and maybe also giving some honest opinions. This is what I struggled with at Drake. This is the class that was the hardest. Kind of really being personable with those students, because as we know, when they come to campus, even if they're coming to campus 2 or 3 times, they might hear the same thing over and over again, and we really want to have kind of a personal side with those students, so that they really know what Drake has to offer and who Drake students, pharmacy students, health science students, OT students really are. So that's something that we've also worked on there. And then with the APHA, I'm the Operation Diabetes Chair. So with that, we organize a lot of the health screenings out in the community. I was participating in that last year and really saw kind of some of the inefficiencies of those screenings, and how we were maybe hosting an event, organizing the time, having volunteers there, and then there was only 3 or 4 individuals showing up. And so we really wanted to change that, so that we were reaching a lot of patients out in the community. So this year, I kind of started the partnership with Drake Athletics, and so we hosted a health screening at one of the women's basketball games, as our women's basketball game rocks. They're awesome. And so hosting a screening at one of their games was really neat. It was kind of like a health and wellness event game, and so we had over 70 people participate in that, and so that was awesome. We did both blood pressure and blood sugar screenings, and that also kind of started the partnership with the athletics department. So we hope to do a screening next semester at a football game, kind of as the tailgate in the parking lot, and then continue doing those as well. And it also kind of gets Drake CPHS awareness out at those games as well. So people see like, oh, here's Drake pharmacy students, they can do all this. That's really neat. So it's just kind of positive all around. And then lastly, with tennis, that's been something that's been very close to me. I played a lot in high school, and so with pharmacy, I decided not to go and play at the varsity level collegiately. And so Drake has given me the great opportunity to play on the club level, which that's right below. And so we still do get to play with schools kind of across the country. I want to say like my biggest match I ever played was against Ohio State my sophomore year, so that was really fun. And so we still have the opportunity to do that while also being a rigorous pharmacy program and still graduating in 6 years. And so that was my biggest thing, not getting burnt out and still graduating on time. And so with that as well, just kind of making sure that group kind of survives and continues on campus. The tennis center is located a little bit separate away from everything else, and so it's sometimes to get new students or to just have students on campus kind of recognize that the tennis center is there and available, and that the Drake varsity teams are both amazing. That was something as well that I wanted to make sure that I continued to do while I was here. And so kind of balancing all that has been very fun amongst all of my other kind of responsibilities, and again, my academics, my professional life, and then also my social life. So
that's awesome. And you're so personable. I feel like making those connections for you is not going to be like, it's
yes.
going to be a walk in the park for you. So then you're going back to your role as the president, what is maybe something that you struggled with or had to overcome, and maybe a little bit about how you overcame that?
I think it's definitely defining the role. So when you, as a new individual that comes into a position, I think it's very easy to look at how things were done before and simply just continue that. And so I think that if you are not willing to change, if you're not willing to put in the extra effort and make the change, that can really kind of lead to an organization's downfall or just the lack of success. And I think that goes with any kind of position that you're holding, whether or not that's an organization or just anything in general, if you're not willing to adapt to what's happening. And so I think, like I was saying, with creating that PowerPoint and just how students, the younger generation's unwillingness to commit and just kind of not being able to adapt to that, you need to recognize what's important to them, even though it might not necessarily be as important to you, and kind of shape that and then help them kind of recognize what is drugs, what is the importance of getting involved in professional organizations. And so I think just, again, stepping out of the comfort zone of maybe what the previous leader did, not necessarily saying that what the previous leader did was bad. I mean, I think it just needs, year to year, it just changes what is occurring. It's going to have to change as times change. And so I think just being willing to do that. And sometimes you might not necessarily have a blueprint. You don't have guidance. You don't have instructions that say, this is what you should do in this situation. You just kind of have to make the decision. And so I kind of took the mindset that I knew when we did something previous, I knew what the end result was. And I was like, if I try this thing new, if I try something new, there's no way that it can be any worse than what that was. And so knowing that it could hopefully only get better or at least stay the same. And so I think kind of taking that and then hopefully leading a kind of ideas for the upcoming presidents for what to do kind of when they're in this situation. So
Interesting, yeah. I like that. Like using your strengths to like see things and being proactive, all great things. So ending on a high note, what's something that or event that you've planned that like really went well and you were like, wow, I'm really proud that I did that?
I would say that it was the mistletoe mingle event that I mentioned with that DRxUGS does. So the DRxUGS chairperson is actually kind of, or DRxUGS president is a 2-year position. So the first year you're the chairperson or president-elect. And so in that position, you're just kind of learning what the president necessarily does, but you also are in charge of hosting this mistletoe mingle event. And so it's a pretty expensive event. It has a lot of planning going into it. So in previous years, it had always been done in a certain location, and we just kind of always got some negative feedback about the location, and so I wanted to switch that up. Again, that was kind of the situation where I could have done the exact same thing as previous years. It would have been easy. I would have just made a phone call and said, this is what we're doing this again. Can you please have this ready for us? Here's a check for money. And so this year, or the year that I did it, that would have been 2017. I decided, let's change the location. Let's do it at the Science Center of Iowa downtown. And so that involved kind of making a new contract with those individuals, contacting a bus company, contacting a catering company, contacting music, and doing all that separately, whereas that would have all been done previously just with one phone call, rather than a lot of trips, driving places, meeting with individuals, trying to get the best prices, sending out donor emails, that type of thing. And but in the end, it was so well worth it. The attendance increase was huge. I think people liked it a lot more. We got so much positive feedback on it on the survey that we sent out later in the spring. And so then that was continued again this year, and I think people did have a great time. And so hopefully that'll be something that kind of becomes a tradition there, or maybe even is switched to another location and becomes even better. But just the event itself becomes something that is more of a thing that everyone goes to. It's not like are you going to this? It's like that you are going to it. It's just understood that you'll be going to it. And so that was really fun, and kind of getting to see that I started the change in that, as I had heard that this event had been hosted, Miss Flamingo had been hosted for like the previous 20 years at the same spot, and it had never been changed. So it was neat to kind of be involved in the switch of that, and kind of the shift on, let's make this a more exciting, fun thing for students.
Yeah. Holy smokes, I did not know that. So ending it all, everything you've talked about, your roles, like managing everything, what kind of advice would you give to younger students that want to maybe take that step up and actually contribute to their organizations?
I would say that the biggest thing is always be willing to say yes to an opportunity. I would not have the experience that I have if I was not willing to say yes to things. Now, I'm one of those individuals who says yes again to almost anything. So maybe that might not be necessarily the best thing for you, as it might get you overwhelmed, especially starting out if you're a younger student listening to this. But be willing to say yes to something, to an organization, to a leadership position, to a new experience that may be outside of your comfort zone, and in the sense that you're not sure maybe that's something that you want to do. So if, say, I offer you a certain position in an organization, You can always accept that position, and there's always a way if it's not something that aligns with your personal professional goals to kind of respectfully step out of that position without kind of burning a bridge or without looking bad. There's by no means, I've worked with many individuals who decide that they don't have the time to successfully be in the leadership position and kind of carry out all that's needed for that spot, and that looks so much better for them to admit that and let me know that than to just kind of continue in that leadership position and not do it correctly. And so I think that a lot of times students maybe hesitate to get involved because they're not sure it's something that they really want to do, or not sure that they're going to have the time. And I think you can always accept that and then take a step back. And if it's not working out for you, you can always let somebody know that. And they will always respect that decision. So don't be hesitant to say yes is kind of my advice for that.
That's awesome. All right, well, everybody, you heard it from Eddie today. Thank you, Eddie, so much for coming in and talking to me. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you.
Yep, have a good day, guys.
Support for this episode comes from the audiobook Memorizing Pharmacology, a relaxed approach. With over 9,000 sales in the United States, United Kingdom, and Australia, it's the go-to resource to ease the pharmacology challenge. Available on Audible, iTunes, and Amazon.com. In print, ebook, and audiobook. Thank you for listening to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast with your host, Tony Guerra. Be sure to share the show with the hashtag #PharmacyLeaders.